You can all be seated. That's a powerful moment that we can share together and lift up our voices. This is what Vincent, I believe, is doing, and man, it's so good to just know the presence of the Lord is here. My name is James Peck, and I'm one of the pastors here at Redeeming Love, and I for a number of years got the honor, the privilege of being a youth pastor to Vincent. And we have our youth programming on Wednesday nights, and he was often there. Not always, because a lot of times he had schoolwork to catch up on, and that was not always a priority to him. And so Mom and whoever made that happen. So the heart of what we're doing today is that you're all here because of Vincent. I'm just going to give you a couple things that as I've been sitting with Karen and Brian and the family, I'm just going to give you a couple of those notes, a couple of them from personal perspective, but there was a balance and a counterbalance to how Vincent lived his life. He was sometimes this way and sometimes that way. Always loving. There were some things that were really consistent. He was always loving, always accepting, always ready to have a good time. But he didn't judge people. He looked at them and he just wanted to connect in a way that made everybody comfortable and wanted to have a good time. But he struggled with this balance and counterbalance of what to do. And you're going to see just from the next section of people that are going to come and share eulogies today, he had a pretty broad reach. He had some circles of friends that didn't connect a whole lot. There's some people over here, there's some people over here, there's some people here, and some of you didn't know him, you know the family. And so the reach of a life that is lived really well goes beyond what we will ever know. And some of the people that were reached by Vincent on a regular basis will have never met him face to face because he just had hilarious memes, and people would just look at that, like it, and share it or whatever. So those people are they have no idea what's going on. But we were trying to do some of those things where we could collect some of that and some videos. You're going to be able to find those things on his Facebook page. Look him up. You can find some videos that he did on his YouTube channel. Just type in Vincent Switala on YouTube, and you're going to find some videos. A bunch of people had no idea that, well, he was a drummer, but a bunch of people had no idea that he was also a violin player. There's some songs on there that he played violin over a couple of his favorite songs, and so go and look those things up. Go and share those things. That was his way of really speaking. That was his way of sharing who he was and what he believed. His hope in Jesus is said through other people's songs sometimes. But in reality, he struggled. Every person that's going to be up here saw Vincent struggle in one way or another, whether it was to complete assignments in school, or if it was to be on time, or if it was to pass a welding certification, or whatever it was. And here's the deal. He never really struggled alone. He pulled people around him to help him. Or maybe people more naturally just gravitated to him because he was such a good guy, and everybody wanted to help him out, right? And that's how it went. And that's how he lived. He had just such an amazing way of relating to people. There was one instance where his parents were sharing that in the same short amount of time, he just had a great time connecting with a little toddler at a pool once, and parents commented on not everybody would just take a time for a toddler and just say hi and play and splash. But then in the same short amount of time, a 60-year-old, that maybe not every young guy would take a time to just hang out and find out how an older person is doing. He was really comfortable doing all of those things. Speaks a lot about who he is. I got to know him really well at at MYC, Minnesota Youth Convention, every year. Staying up way too late or not sleeping at all, having to knock on some doors and just say, what's going on in here? Is everybody okay? Same thing at camp. He usually stayed in his cabin at night, but sometimes he outsmarted the night watch people. And we would have talent shows at our youth ministry, and almost every time he entered, he won. He won some beats. He won some cool stuff because he'd just pull out something. He'd make a video. He'd read something. He'd play a violin. He'd play guitar. He'd do whatever. And he was one of the most talented, gifted people that I knew. And so as you continue to go through and hear a lot of these things, I hope that you take time, stick around today, and share with people. You may not have a microphone, but you're going to sit across from some people with some lunch. Share stories. Talk about some things that you loved about him. Talk about things that frustrated you about him. It's real life, right? And it's in the middle of it is how we knew him. And I encourage you to stick around for those things. Share those things. But every person that's going to come up and share today knew him in a little bit different way. And you're going to get to see that. I believe today, I'm going to end with this story. Karen called me last Friday and said, I just heard this. I had a crazy phone call. I don't know what's going on. I can't reach Brian. And so we just tried to figure out where he was. Didn't know exactly if this was a rumor, if we got information wrong. Ended up through a series of events over the next several hours, just walking her through one of the most horrific days a mom, a family can go through. And it came to this point where there is just this conviction. We've been singing about resurrection this morning. We've been singing about the power that God has. We've been singing about there's hope beyond this moment. And earlier on last Friday, in my daily reading of the Bible, I read a story about a guy named Peter. He was in a similar situation, and there's a young girl that meant a lot to a lot of people, had passed away. And after everybody had left the room, Peter went up, took her by the hand, and said, "Get up, Tabitha." She sat up, walked out of the room, and everybody freaked out. Everybody just celebrated. And in that moment, Brian and Karen, Pastor Mike and I, other family were there, but we were just like, hey, if we believe in God. And so we walked in and we're praying, and he didn't sit up. And we're talking, Karen's talking to him, Brian's talking to him. We're just there, and we're like, we're there for a while. Slowly, it came time to go, and Brian and Karen were led out by Pastor Mike, the medical examiner, walked out. And I'm just thinking, I just read something today, and I'm going to act on it. And I walked over, and I took him by the hand, and I tugged a little bit. And I said, "Get up, Vincent." And he didn't sit up. And I was just like, okay. On the way home, I was frustrated. I was like, I failed in my first resurrection attempt. I've never done this before. You know, I'm not trying to be crass. This is honestly what I was thinking, and my life is. And on the way home, I was just thinking, maybe God said no, or maybe Vincent said, this is really good where I'm at. Things weren't always how I wanted it. There's no more crying. There's no more sickness. There's no more. And I just know this, that he is having such a good time where he is, and he's hoping that every one of us joins him there someday. You're going to hear from several different people that are important in these circles of friends, and it's really a beautiful moment that we get to share those things. And again, I encourage you to share your thoughts and your memories as we go on. One last thing before I walk away. This has been a really intense week for the Switalas, for their family. Everybody's been pulling together and doing a lot of these things. In the days to come, in the weeks to come, in the months to come, remember them. As you remember Vincent, remember them and reach out. They're getting a lot of attention in this last week. They're going to need that as they go through the grieving process, right? Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Keith Schwartz, and I am one of Vincent's older friends. I've been asked to share a little bit about the worship team's thoughts and experiences of our life with Vincent, what we shared with him, and what we've come to learn from him. It was about a decade or so ago that a virtually constantly smiling boy came out of the RLC youth group. Thank you, Pastor James. And he joined the music ministry team. Some of the members were up here today, beginning his service as the youngest of us on the worship team. From both a musical and personal perspective, Vincent absolutely flowed with the team from day one. And from the very first time he drew his bow across the violin strings, it became happily clear to all of us that we had just gained a supremely gifted musician. Because of the many things I want to tell you about Vincent, this is one thing you must know. Vincent was an artist. He was anointed in the truest sense, a visionary musician with a vision to worship Jesus. Vincent played amazingly inspired violin with abilities far beyond his years. He played with the phrasing and dynamics of a master, always with focus and fire, at times bursting into beautiful solos that were spontaneously improvised and completely perfect. Even better than that, he played violin for the slow songs and fiddle for the fast ones. Fast forward to a few years later, in the last few years, our main drummer relocated and we needed a new drummer. And knowing the need of the situation and wanting to help the team, Vincent earnestly stepped up and took the "I will learn to play the drums and become the main drummer" challenge. And he sure did. In the first couple of weeks, he played drums, and it was pretty good. I mean, new drummer. By the third week, his drumming was actually quite good. By the fourth week, it was, wow, that was really good. And by the second month, it sounded like he'd been playing his whole life. Now, as amazing as all this is, reflect on this. He did all this without owning drums. However he did it, Vincent was able to imagine intricate drum parts throughout the week and show up at playing exactly what was needed. So yeah, Vincent was an outstanding musician, but there's much more to this story, because Vincent was an above outstanding human being. Sometimes extraordinary abilities can bring out an illusion of prideful arrogance where a person starts to think of himself more than others. But Vincent was raised by great parents, and he had great mentors, and he would have none of that. He knew that the true strength of character was in thinking more of and in serving others by achieving the greatest relationship of all, that of being a friend. Vincent poured himself without an afterthought, and he took interest in and genuinely and permanently befriended the many lives that came his way, old or young, good-looking or not, and even nice or not so nice, and everyone in between. The package didn't matter. Though he reached so many, Vincent was never pushy at all, but he had somehow mastered that special way of his, and he had the insight and the will to make himself available to become a friend. Once you were Vincent's friend, which happened quickly, you realized he was absolutely filled with good humor and brotherly love. Not that he was perfect. Vincent, who often did not go to bed early on Saturday nights, was perhaps the best of us in eking out the very last possible instant of Sunday morning sleep before arriving to our scheduled 7:30 a.m. band practice. Especially on the winter months, it was not an uncommon thing for Christopher to get his "I'm on my way" texts. And some minutes later, sees Vincent sprinting across the sanctuary toward the drums and sliding into the drummer's throne behind the plexiglass sound shield with all the silent stealth, speed, and skill of a ninja. During, but not quite before, the start of Sunday morning practice. Sometimes with drumsticks in hand, sometimes not. But through all that, somehow he always made it, and he was always worth waiting for. And by now, a young man, something else happened as Vincent played the drums. As he explained it, quite logically, drumming makes me hungry. We estimate the RLC donut box has doubled since that day he discovered that. Our Vincent loved donuts. It was his drum fuel. However, even donuts have their culinary limits, and with a need for protein, Vincent became known for his talent in managing to fit in fast food runs between, during, sorry, Pastor, and after services. Vincent and I had a special friendship. It was a really special friendship. I don't know if it's because I'm almost as good as Brian at telling dad jokes, or he's the same age as my son Henry. I don't know, but we bonded just great. And I often found myself accompanying him on his fortification runs, mainly just to be sure he was eating healthy. And secondly, because guitaring also makes me hungry. But I will absolutely treasure those dining adventures, and more than that, the unforgettable discussions we had. Vincent is quite simply unforgettable. You'll hear a lot about Vincent's amazing character today, but something we'd also like you to understand about our worship team and why Vincent was and remains such an integral part of it. We are a family. We love and trust each other, and we have each other's back. We pray with each other and mentor each other and encourage and come together in both good and hard circumstances of each other's lives, sharing our trials and triumphs every time we get together. God has blessed us in that, and over the years it has made us strong. We are family. We're soldiers carrying the banner of Jesus Christ. We are brothers and sisters in this life and the next. And while I'm up here speaking, and while every one of us dearly misses Vincent because he was truly something special, we also know with a sure certainty in our spirits where he is right now. He was promoted. He was promoted, and he is even now rejoicing with King Jesus. We on the RLC worship team will ever remain deeply grateful to Vincent's parents, Brian and Karen, and his brothers and sisters, Nick, Megan, Connor, Karina, for being a family so wonderful and loving as to produce a son and brother like this, and then so generously sharing him with us. Thank you. Even as the youngest of us, he often led us because he built a life upon a foundation of love that absolutely touched thousands of lives. And he taught us in his own utterly unique and irrepressible way. As for what Vincent taught us, I can tell you right here and now that it's even so much more than we know. It'll be revealed over the years as we witness the ripple effect of the many who have absorbed a better way to live and were pointed to God just by knowing Vincent. I'll leave you with just 7 of the truly important things in life Vincent taught the worship team. Number 1, love God with every fiber of your being. He is so worthy. Number 2, serve the Lord by making everyone you meet a friend. Number 3, if God gave you a gift, don't keep it to yourself. Seek his guidance and use it up. Share it freely. Number 4, laugh at good jokes and laugh even more loudly at the bad ones. Number 5, smile and keep your sense of humor all through the rough times, because rough times will come. And if you do get sad, just hang in there, smile, rinse, and repeat. Number 6, never be afraid to dance, play, and sing with joy, loudly. And lastly, with practice, it is possible to simultaneously giggle and eat donuts without stopping either activity. I want to thank you all for being here today to honor and reflect upon Vincent's truly amazing life. There is melody to this life. There's melody of joy and love. It's an eternal melody given by our Father God to us, and it flows through us by obedience to the power of the Holy Spirit. It may well be that Vincent's greatest musical gift was to be able to faithfully and instantly resonate that melody into someone's life. It is a song he played well, and one that we who love him will never forget. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's not surprising to see how many people are here today. I am Angie Gable. I had the privilege of being Vince's supervisor at Rosenbauer. He was one of my first hires, and I'll never forget his interview. He interviewed very well. He was so enthusiastic about the job. I decided I would offer it to him in about 5 minutes. Because, number one, enthusiasm can't be bought. It's inside you. And number two, he met the requirements for the job at an entry-level position. He had 2 thumbs. Kept them both. The enthusiasm that he showed at that interview carried on into his work once he started. He's very dedicated. As the new guy on the team and the younger guy on the team, he did a lot of the dirty work, a lot of the tedious, repetitive work, and one task after another. And he took every one of them on. Never complained, always smiled, as you know, and approached it all as an opportunity. Of course, as a supervisor, he was also at times challenging as well. His enthusiasm to help everyone got him into trouble, and he would take on any job you gave him, and if 5 people offered him something that they needed done, he would do them all, and he couldn't do them all at once, so he would focus on whatever somebody asked him to do most recently, and sometimes that wasn't necessarily the priority. We'd have to talk with him on occasion to get him back on track, but well, he would always explain this, Donnie needs this and Tim needs that, and how could I say no? And of course, another challenge he offered me. It was good to have challenges as a leader. It makes you a better leader, so he helped me a lot. When we hire someone, we do a 90-day review, an initial review, and going over his record at that 90 days, wow, you're a textbook, wonderful employee. You're here on time every day. It's amazing. A few months after that changed, and I said, Vince, what happened? I thought you were a morning guy. No, I had no idea. Brian woke him up every morning, made sure he made it to work on time, till he got that 90 days in, and we couldn't, just kick him off to the side anymore, and then we were stuck with him, happily so. I said, Vince, do you need me to buy you an alarm clock? My manager told me sometimes that's a good technique. You buy someone an alarm clock, it gets the message across. No, I got one. And the final challenge is he was terrible at picking a football team. I got nothing I can do about that. He had a lot of friends at work. He made a lot of friends in the short time he was with us, and it wasn't just in our department. He had buddies in every department. Many of them are here today. He was a very, very easy person to befriend. And I don't think it was so much an ability to fit in as an ability to just belong. He didn't have to try. He'd naturally get along with anybody. And just as to what was said before, I mean, he has friends his age, he has friends that are old enough to be his grandparents, just at work alone. I don't know him very well outside of work. We would occasionally on Friday go out and have a burger and a beer after work, but he had a lot going in his life. He wasn't there all the time. Cherished the times we did have. In the last week, I learned a lot more about him, how many varied interests he had, how many groups he was a part of, how many talents he had that I was completely unaware of. And the diversity in music that he liked is one of my favorites. when he realized he could bring his own radio in and start playing what he wanted, he was very, very happy. Because he wanted to play so much. And I just remember how proud I was the first time he played some heavy metal. It almost brought a tear to my eye. 10 minutes later, he's playing some digital, discotheque crap, and I was fighting off the urge to smash his radio. But fair is fair, and everybody gets their turn, and he played a little bit of everything, so what he listened to is what we listened to. And that was very enjoyable. Yeah, I'm never gonna forget that infectious smile. He was always grinning. The only time he stopped grinning was when he had to make an even funnier face, clowning around, really. And even then, he was smiling on the inside, certainly. Back to the music on last Friday, his last day with us. He was listening to heavy metal again. I was proud. I was out doing my thing. I'm not always in the department. And I came back to the department and I found out that a tour group had walked through, as they often do, and the unwritten rule is you turn the radio down to be respectful when the tour group comes through. And he hadn't done that, so I said, well, I'll have to have a talk with him about this on Monday. That's a conversation that never happened, and that's going to be my reminder, how he's taken from us too soon. I love you, Vince. We miss you terribly. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julia. I'm speaking on behalf of all of his friends over there. I'm sure you know the group. Okay. Vince was the type of person that brought joy and happiness everywhere he went. Either it was through his sense of humor, his crazy dance moves, his grandpa laugh, or him blaring Shania Twain every time he pulled into the driveway. He would always bring a smile to everyone's face. Even though we only knew Vince for a short amount of time, it felt like we had known him for years. Vince might have had a short life, but he spread more love and joy than some do in an entire lifetime. One of my favorite nights with Vince was when me and Carly decided to go on a girls' night, and Vince tagged along. We always considered him to be one of the girls. He loved being up to date with all the latest gossip. Maybe that's how he got his nickname, Vanessa. That night was filled with tears of laughter and memories. I can honestly say it was one of the best girl nights I'll ever have. Trenton told me a story about one day. It was payday, so Trent, Vince, and Austin decided to go get fireworks from Wisconsin. So they all piled in a single cab truck with no AC on one of the hottest days and road trip to Wisconsin. When they were about to check out, Trent and Austin both came to the register with a shopping cart full of fireworks. Then there was Vince with one little package of fireworks that came to a total of about $10. Vince didn't care about what he was doing or where he was going. He only cared about making memories with the people that he loved. Taylor told me that her favorite memories with Vince was driving around, jamming to My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, and of course, Shania Twain. She told me that one weekend she came home from work, all dolled up with her hair curled, and Andrew had made a comment on how pretty she looked. Then Vince walked up to her and said, "Taylor, you look immaculate tonight." She said it really melted her heart. Vince could always make you smile and laugh. Sometimes he would say the goofiest of things. Trent told me that there was this time before Mudfest that they were all sitting around talking, and Vince goes, "So does everyone get their own campsite at Mudfest?" And everyone kind of looked at him and laughed because we all camped together. Mudfest was filled with so many amazing memories. I can remember taking Vince on four-wheeler rides, but I had a small four-wheeler, so every time that we got stuck, he would have to get off and push, which happened quite a lot. I remember the whole group getting into a huge mud battle, and during that, I had ran up to Vince with 2 muddy hands and wiped them on both of his cheeks, so he had 2 handprints on his face. He left it like that for the rest of the day. My favorite memory from Mudfest was watching Vince dance during the Cupid Shuffle. I was lucky enough to get it on video. Every time I watch it, it makes me laugh. At one point during one of the nights, I saw Vince after not seeing him for a while, so I ran up to him and he gave me the biggest hug. But our feet got stuck, so we fell over into the mud. Vince always gave the best hugs. Trent told me about the time that he tried to teach Vince how to drive a stick shift, but he kept stalling. Then they got up to a busy intersection and the people behind him were getting frustrated. Vince started to go again, but he killed it once again, right in the middle. People got mad, so Trent opened up the back window and yelled, as loud as he could, "Sorry, he's drunk." And Trent said after that, it felt like they had laughed for hours. Vince and I have had a deep connection. I think with more time, it could have been something special. I will always miss the conversations we had every day, and I'll even miss the stupid memes he always sent me. Vince was very fond of the SpongeBob and the Letterkenny ones. We miss you, Vince, more than words can describe. Even the things that we have done for you only show a fraction of how much we miss you and how much we loved you. Some might say that because you were so young, you weren't able to finish your story. But I know that God's story for you is just beginning. Even though I know most of us are struggling with the should-haves, the could-haves, and the would-haves, I believe that the ones that we truly love will never truly leave us. There are some things that death can't take from us. Vince's love and compassion will forever be in all of our hearts. We love and we really, really miss you, Vince.